swear every time I hear this intro music, I want to shave some blue-haired libtard's head and tattoo God Bless America on their forehead. Like or subscribe, you know the deal. Libtards, it would take you too long to decide, set up a committee, reorganize, and request change for the future to click on a button so you don't have to press a button. Anybody else, please press a button. First, this is the second attempt at recording this episode. The first was stuck in reverb as I was trying to get creative. I guess we'll just leave that creativity up to the blue-haired, college-crawling libtard masses. I thrive in black and white. We will leave the gray areas to the dark ones. To lighten the mood a little before we start, because to be truthful, this is going to be a kind of solemn and respectful podcast after I get done bashing on the libtards. I also want to bash on that idiot out in Wisconsin with the bar for all you libtards that want to see our president hurt. Y'all are a bunch of assholes. I'm sorry. There's no other way to put it. You're a bunch of attention-seeking, want my 5 minutes of fame on the news, crybaby, men are wearing panties, women's panties, libtards. Y'all suck. You're all horrible people, but you're included in this libtard category. All you people that go to that bar and support the idiot running it. But this is going to lighten the mood a little bit before we start because we are going to be respectful after the libtard jokes. For all the non-blue-haired libtards out there, they're the ones going to this guy's microbrewery bar. The jokes are inclusive to all libtards. After all, that's what they all want, to be inclusive, so you're included. Congratulations, you're a libtard. You're no better than the blue-haired college freaks setting up tents on their campus and burning flags. You're all a bunch of assholes. So here we go. A blue-haired liberal walks into a cafe. 5 minutes later, they've organized a community garden, started a book club, and written a 12-page proposal explaining why the muffins should be more inclusive. How many blue-haired liberals does it take to change a light bulb? 1 to change it, 3 to discuss the environmental impact, 2 to draft a grant proposal for solar lighting, and 1 to remind everyone that darkness affects communities differently. A blue-haired liberal gets a flat tire. I love this one. A blue-haired liberal gets a flat tire. Before changing it, they hold a listening session to make sure all 4 tires feel equally represented. Why did the blue-haired liberal bring a spreadsheet to the protest? Because somebody had to track attendance, emissions, snack distribution, and whether the chants met accessibility guidelines. A blue-haired liberal's nightmare, you ask? What is that? Discovering their reusable tote bag was manufactured by a corporation they complained about online. What is the difference between a blue-haired liberal and a software update? The software update only asks you to change your settings once. I didn't see that one before when I read through them. A blue-haired liberal orders lunch. The waiter asks super salad. They reply, before I answer, I'd like to acknowledge the historical relationship between soups and salads. Why don't blue-haired liberals ever get lost? Because eventually they'll form a committee to determine where they are. All right, enough of the fun and games. Let's get a little serious. This is a respect for Fernando Aguirre, and yes, that's the proper way to answer his name, and for his family. He could well be considered the father of modern preppers. This is a bit of a history lesson, but as you should already know, history always repeats. The downside is that it's a slap in the face to those that went before us if we have learned nothing from their example and suffering. I challenge you to learn from this episode. As a great man and great mind said just yesterday or the day before, which that would be me, to my brother from another mother going forward, BFAM, history always repeats. The only persons that change the inevitable outcome are the ones that have truly learned from the past. It's the very origin of the prepper mindset. Now, this podcast was my BFAM's idea. I cannot thank him enough for pointing out and pointing me in the right direction to discuss something so important. If you are already thinking about tuning out because history is not your cup of tea, let me be the first to congratulate you for being doomed to live out history's mistakes. All of the gear you can possibly buy does not equal wisdom and skill. Go ahead and buy all the gear and guns you want. Buy them all. When the smoke clears, your gear and guns will be mine, and you'll be dust in the wind. History has taught me many things. One was to adopt and live with the philosophy, what's yours is yours until I want it to be mine. The only question is, after I take your shit, will you be walking, limping, or carried away? Learn from this episode. Here we go. Fernando Aguirre, Lessons from Argentina's Economic Collapse and the Importance of Preparedness. And before I go on, I will admit I did tap into AI for some of this. I started getting too emotional about it and getting too upset knowing that I'm going to give this episode and people are already tuned out, or people are going to learn nothing from it. They're going to hear about storing food and money and everything else, and all they're going to hear about is guns. So I did tap into AI to soften it a little bit. I hope you recognize that the only reason I used AI was to make this more applicable to everyone and not out of my own knowledge. When discussing modern survival and preparedness, few names carry as much credibility as Fernando Aguirre. Unlike many preparedness authors who base their recommendations on theory, historical research, or hypothetical scenarios, Aguirre lived through one of the most significant economic collapses in modern history. As a resident of Argentina during the devastating financial crisis that unfolded in the late 1900s and early 2000s, which the official collapse was dated 2001, he experienced firsthand the breakdown of financial institutions, rising crime, shortages, political instability, and social unrest. His experiences became the foundation for his influential book, Surviving the Economic Collapse, which has become required reading in many preparedness circles. Excuse me. Aguirre's perspective is unique because it is grounded in reality rather than speculation. His observation demonstrates how ordinary families can survive extraordinary circumstances through planning, adaptability, awareness, and practical decision-making. This episode examines economic collapse of Argentina, the challenges faced by Aguirre and his family, the survival strategies he employed, and the lessons modern preppers can learn from experiences. And before I go on, you are going to notice that a great deal of the things talked about in this episode we have covered on this podcast site. I'm not banging my own drum. Not all of them were my idea. Most of them were, but not all of them were my idea. But you're going to start to understand why the people on this podcast stress mental preparedness and the things we talk about rather than, explosives, knives, and guns. But the stuff we talk about is what really matters in a prepper atmosphere. If you want to go off the deep end and go doomsday prepper and buy 400 guns, one for every minute of the day, that's on you, man. You do it. You be you. But the truth of the matter is the mindset, the observational skills, the situational awareness is more important than any weapon you can buy. Maybe not a Barrett 50 cal. Barrett 50 cals are pretty important, but for the most part, situational awareness is what's going to save you, not a gun. Let's talk about Argentina before the collapse. Prior to the crisis, Argentina appeared relatively stable. The nation had implemented economic reforms that tied its currency, the peso, to the United States dollar. This arrangement initially created confidence and reduced inflation. Citizens trusted banks, invested money, and believed their savings were secure. However, beneath the surface, significant structural problems existed. Government debt continued to rise. Economic growth slowed. Here's your first yawn. Unemployment increased, and public confidence began to weaken. Many citizens assumed the government would eventually solve these problems. There's mistake number one. Few imagined that banking systems itself would become inaccessible or that the savings could effectively disappear overnight. The false sense of security is one of the first lessons Aguirre emphasizes. People often believe that major institutions are permanent and reliable until suddenly they are not. Let's drill down into the banking crisis a little bit. One of the defining moments of the collapse occurred when the Argentine government imposed restrictions on bank withdrawals. Imagine if that happened in the States. If just a massive national announcement went out, Truth.com and Fox TV, and they all came out and said, as of today, no more than $200 a day can be withdrawn from your bank account and through ATMs or at tellers. Now, people would lose their damn minds. And CNN and the other, liberal news outlets, they'd be blaming Trump, explicitly blaming Trump for it, and they'd be, this is the beginning of the end, blah, 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 here comes the stormtroopers. But imagine if that happened in the States as we go on through this, and just try to make this more applicable to the United States. I thought about this after I recorded the first one. Think about a lot of this stuff as it refers to the United States, because this could all happen. All right? So the restrictions that the government imposed on bank withdrawals, this became known as Corralito, refers to the freeze on bank accounts imposed in Argentina on 2001. Citizens who had worked for years to save money discovered they could no longer freely access their own funds. Families that believed they were financially secure suddenly found themselves unable to pay bills, purchase necessities, or protect their assets. Aguirre observed how quickly trust in financial institutions evaporated. Many people learned a harsh lesson. Money in the bank is only useful when it remains accessible. Now, I know that sounds like common sense, but you'd have to learn it and live it to understand it. Because of this experience, Aguirre later advocated for diversification of assets. He stressed that individuals should not rely entirely on a single financial institution or government system. The next logical observation is going to be crime and social disorder. As economic conditions worsened, crime rates increased dramatically. Aguirre documented numerous incidents involving robberies, home invasions, carjackings, and violent street crime. Criminals recognized that law enforcement resources were stretched thin and desperate people were becoming easier targets. Many survival enthusiasts imagined collapse scenarios involving wilderness survival. Aguirre's experiences revealed something completely different. The primary threat was not wild animals or lack of fire-making skills. The greatest danger came from other human beings. His observation shifted to preparedness discussions toward human-urban survival, personal security, situational awareness, and crime prevention. Now, you all know we talked about situational awareness, and I'm going to say right now, I'm going to beat it up again. I hate urban survival. I hate urban survival training. I hate urban survival tactics. I have years of training. I hated the training because I realized what it meant. When you take training like urban survival training in the military or in law enforcement, you are training for the worst of the worst social, what do you want to call it, social crisis situations you can face. Urban survival and urban combat means you are facing the collapse of society. There's no way around it. Whether it's short-term, long-term, it's people against people from the same community usually, and it's the worst possible situation you can have. You're fighting your neighbors at that point. It could be outsiders, but chances are, if it's getting that bad, that you're going from building to building in the town you live in or the community you live in. You're living a big oh shit, and I hate the thought of it. I hate the idea of it. But it's something we got to prepare for. Let's move on. Situational awareness. One of Aguirre's most repeated themes is the importance of awareness. He learned to pay close attention to his surroundings, monitor suspicious behavior, avoid dangerous ideas, and identify threats before they developed into emergencies. Rather than focusing on expensive gadgets, hear it again, and I'm going to use a little reverb here to make emphasis. Rather than focusing on expensive gadgets. Okay, I think I got the button off. He emphasized observation and judgment. A person who recognizes danger early often avoids becoming involved in the danger at all. The principle remains highly relevant today, whether facing economic hardship, civil unrest, natural disasters, or an ordinary crime. Awareness remains one of the most effective survival tools available. Now, damn it, I've talked about this so many times. I guess it's validation for me when someone as great as Aguirre writes about it in his book. It's validation for me and for what I'm trying to teach people here on this podcast. A gun is no good. A knife is no good as far as weapons go. Booby traps, trip flares, none of it's any good if you don't have real situational awareness. Y'all need to start practicing situational awareness. And when I talk about situational awareness, close your eyes. Don't open your eyes. The closest person in the house to you, be it your wife, husband, spouse, partner, whatever, child, what are they wearing right now without opening your eyes? Can you tell me? Can you tell me what they were wearing yesterday? Can you tell me how many dishes were in the sink the last time you walked by? How much milk is in the milk jug? I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is a type of situational awareness. If you can't do this, you're not practicing situational awareness. This is how you practice situational awareness. You practice it in your everyday life with everything going on around you. This is going to teach you how when you get into an oh shit situation, then you're going to be able to use situational awareness because you're already exercising that ability. You should be able to transition directly into a defensive form of situational awareness. And defensive can transfer into offensive automatically. But you need to practice situational awareness. Moving on. Home security. As crime increased for Aguirre, home security became a major concern. Aguirre strengthened his physical barriers all around his home. He improved locks, reinforced entry points, and carefully evaluated vulnerabilities. His approach focused on practical improvements rather than unrealistic fortress building. He understood that every layer of security increases the effort required by criminals and encourages them to seek easier targets elsewhere. Now, before you go saying, well, that's horrible, I strengthened my house and it encourages the bad guys to go hit somebody else. Hey, that's their fault for not strengthening their house, too. You can't think that way. You take care of number one and the people that depend on number one, and that's it. This layered defense philosophy remains widely accepted among preparedness experts today. That's not your tactical false prophets. That's not your people trying to sell you a ton of gear online. It's the preparedness experts that accept this philosophy. Transportation considerations. Biggie. During periods of instability, transportation becomes a lot more dangerous. Roadblocks, demonstrations, criminal activity, and fuel concerns create additional risks. Aguirre learned to avoid unnecessary travel and carefully plan routes. Planning routes. What would that involve? Let's see. Map reading. What did we just talk about? Map reading. You got to know what's going to flood. You're looking for low-lying areas. You got to know about highly steep mountains, roads, whatever, unimproved surfaces. All this comes from reading a topo map. You can tell all this from reading a topographical map and using a compass. Carefully planned routes, topographical map and compass. It's that simple. That's all you need. He recognized that mobility can be both an asset and a liability. Many emergencies occur while people are moving between locations rather than being safely at home. I guess that's the best way to put that. His experience reinforced the importance of maintaining vehicles, carrying emergency supplies at all times, and understanding alternate routes. How many of you have honestly planned out alternate routes away from your house to a safer location? Honestly, aside from sitting there and thinking about it for about 20 seconds until the next commercial comes on and you get hungry for Arby's, honestly, how many have you actually planned out a complete alternate route from your current situation to the next point of interest, your safe spot? An alternate route that takes you completely away from floodplains, danger areas, congestion points, roads that might get shut down by the military. Have any of you even done that? I highly doubt more than 5 people listening to this have done that. The importance of cash. This is a biggie, and I'm going to add something to this one too. One of the most valuable lessons from the Argentine collapse involved cash. Economic banking systems became unreliable. Withdrawal limits restricted access to funds. Businesses often preferred cash transaction. Families possessing accessible cash reserves enjoyed greater flexibility. Aguirre observed that having reasonable amounts of cash available allowed people to continue purchasing necessities even when financial system experienced disruptions. Preparedness does not require abandoning modern banking, but it does require acknowledging that financial systems can experience interruptions. All right, let's talk about all the tactical false prophets out there that are pushing silver and gold purchasing. First question, or first scenario, and I had this in the last one that I screwed up with the reverb, but let's say, okay, but let's change it up a little bit. You got a 30-year-old or a 90-year-old, I don't know, you're caring for your parents, you're caring for your kids, you're caring for your spouse. They're running a fever, you need to go get some aspirin, you need to get some bread and some milk. You don't have any cash, but you do have a $250 gold piece. You have all these gold pieces that you've been investing in. So you go down to the store because, it's been about 2 or 3 weeks. There are supplies available. However, they've jacked the shit out of the prices. So what should have been costing you about $20, it's now going to probably cost you, let's just go high and say it's $150 for aspirin, bread, and milk. Great. All you have is a $250 gold piece. You show it to the shopkeeper, and they look at you and they say, well, that's great, except I don't have we're not doing change. You got to have the exact amount. So you just gave them $250 for what's really about $20 worth of groceries because you invested in gold or silver rather than just depending on cash. And you didn't realize that right about the same time the value of cash runs out, the value of gold and silver is going to diminish rapidly because it's not going to be used in trade. You can't eat gold and silver. You can't shoot gold and silver out of a gun. You can't smoke gold and silver, and you can't get drunk off of gold and silver. That's why cigarettes, whiskey, food, that's the kind of stuff that's going to be currency. And God knows coffee is going to be currency. I urge you to reconsider buying gold and silver in mass amounts. Small amounts, yeah, whatever. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't work. You don't know. But people aren't always going to need gold and silver. People are always going to need coffee. People are always going to need food. People are always going to need whiskey. Trust me, they're going to need whiskey and cigarettes. And trust me when I tell you, people are always going to need toilet paper. These are the cash of the doomsday scenario. It's not the gold and silver. Just face that reality right now. You've been lied to. That moves us right into food security. Contrary to some popular survival myths, Argentina did not experience complete food shortages. Generally, food remained available. The challenge was affordability. As inflation accelerated and purchasing power declined, many families struggled to buy necessities. This distinction is important. Economic collapse often involves reduced access rather than total absence of goods. Aguirre therefore emphasized maintaining a practical food reserve. Having several weeks or months of essential food supplies reduces dependence on unstable markets and allows families to avoid panic buying. Building community. Aguirre frequently highlighted the value of relationships. During difficult times, neighbors, friends, and family members often become critical resources. People share information, exchange goods, provide assistance, and offer emotional support. Individuals who isolate themselves may discover that surviving alone is far more difficult than expected. Strong social networks can provide resilience that no amount of equipment can replace. Now, this is a big one, and I'm going to touch on a personal situation that I'm not proud of, but I mentioned this in also the episode that I screwed up with the reverb. My BFAM heard something in my voice when I was talking, when I was having a very, very difficult time after my back surgery, finding work. Money was getting tight. He heard something in my voice that he knew I was in trouble, and I really was. I was going down a dark path. And he sent something out to me that just blew me away. It humbled me. I had several tears in my eyes. My fiance was blown away that he did it. It actually put us in a positive mood, a positive framework to go forward. We got much more aggressive, and to be honest with you, things started getting better after that. All the beans, bolts, and band-aids, if you're sitting there by yourself, you're not gonna make it. You need other people. You need other people to lean on. During COVID, for example, for all you people that think COVID wasn't real, y'all can go to hell. I caught COVID. I caught it close to the very beginning. I ended up with double pneumonia, and I stopped breathing twice. It wasn't just a coincidence that I caught it at the same time. I actually caught it. It was right after they opened airports again, and they just started to let people start flying again. I was going to training, and I actually caught it either on the plane or in the airport. I'm not sure. But like I said, I was running 103 fever. I had double pneumonia, and I did stop breathing twice. I'm just too miserable, old, and mean to die. I lost more than one friend. I lost a very, very close friend to COVID. So again, those of you who say it's not real, shut up and go away. But I did have family members, God bless them. Probably one of them was saying COVID wasn't real. But they were going around from house to house of family members. They were visiting family members that they knew were sick, and they were leaving bottled water and food and all kinds. I think they gave a couple people DVDs, but they took it upon themselves to care for family. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a social network. I'm not talking about your blue banner Facebook bullshit or any of that. I'm talking about a real social network, people you can reach out and touch and talk to. They're the ones that are going to make the difference in a real disaster. So if you have people like that in your life, love them, protect them, and pray for them, because they're going to take care of you. Let's move forward to adaptability. One of Aguirre's greatest strengths was adaptability. He did not cling to outdated assumptions. When circumstances changed, he adjusted his behavior accordingly. He modified spending habits, altered routines, increased security measures, and continuously evaluated risks. Preparedness is not a static checklist. It's an ongoing process of adaptation. This mindset allowed his family to navigate changing and challenging conditions more effectively than many others. Psychological resilience. Economic collapse places enormous stress on individuals and families. Fear, uncertainty, frustration, and anxiety become constant companions. Aguirre observed that physical resilience was often as important as physical preparedness. People who remained calm, rational, and focused made better decisions. Those who panicked frequently created additional problems for themselves and others. Mental preparedness, therefore, represents a crucial component of overall readiness. There, you hear it? Experts agree. Get off my jock. Realistic preparedness. Perhaps Aguirre's most significant contribution to preparedness culture is his emphasis on realism. He discourages fantasy scenarios and encouraged practical planning. Rather than preparing for fictional apocalyptic events, he focused on the challenges that real people actually encounter: inflation, unemployment, rising crime, supply disruptions, political instability, financial restrictions, and social unrest. His recommendations were grounded in experience rather than entertainment. So let's give an example. And again, I'm not proud of it, but after my surgery, money got tight. So we were really affected by the inflation going on. I was unemployed. What else? The financial restrictions, obviously, because I was unemployed. So we were affected by 3 or 4 of those topics we just mentioned. However, we had food stores, we had water stores, we had money stores, and we had a very, very, very strong social network of support. We weathered what could have been a truly disastrous situation primarily because of prayer. We had food stores, we had water stores and beverage stores, coffee, of course, and we had a very strong social family network. So this doesn't mean that you need all this just for the apocalypse or the zombie attack or the UFO attack or whatever ridiculous fantasy is going on in some of y'all's minds. This could hit you tomorrow without affecting the rest of the country. It could affect you individually. You could lose your job. You know, you go 3 months without work, you're going to really notice a hit in your bank account unless you're like, you know, Bill Gates. You're going to notice it. Trust me. I don't care how much you have in the bank. You're going to feel it. You don't realize how many payments you make on top of what you're putting in the bank, you know, just to survive. You know, you pay more than just rent. You pay a lot of payments. And when there's no money coming in to counter that, you're going to really notice a hit in your savings. So this isn't just for the end of the world. This is realistic preparedness. Lessons for modern preppers. Several major lessons emerge from Aguirre's experiences. Economic threats can be as dangerous as natural disasters. Cash reserves remain valuable. Home security matters. Situational awareness saves lives. Community is essential. Food storage provides flexibility. Adaptability is critical. Psychological resilience improves decisions making. Okay, let's try it again. Psychological resilience improves decision making. Diversification reduces risks. Practical preparation beats fantasy preparation any day. These lessons continue to resonate because they address realistic challenges faced by ordinary families. In conclusion, Aguirre occupies a unique position within the preparedness community because his advice originates from lived experiences. He did not study collapse from a distance. He endured it. The Argentine economic crisis demonstrated how quickly stable societies experience profound disruptions. Financial systems failed, crime increased, trust eroded, and ordinary citizens were forced to adapt. Through awareness, planning, flexibility, and practical preparedness, Aguirre and his family successfully navigated these challenges. His experiences remind us that preparedness is not about fear. It is about increasing options, reducing vulnerability, and maintaining the ability to care for ourselves and families when circumstances become difficult. More than 2 decades later, the lessons of Argentina's collapse remain relevant. I mean, let's face it, that wasn't that long ago. Economic uncertainty, really, it wasn't that long ago. Probably the only thing that's changed is video game graphics have gotten better and AI is taking over the world. Economic uncertainty, political instability, and social disruptions continue to affect nations around the world. Aguirre's story serves as both a warning and a guide, demonstrating that thoughtful preparation can make a difference between merely enduring a crisis and successfully navigating it. I was going to do a couple more pages on the lessons we should have learned from Aguirre, but we probably won't. But the truth of the matter is just kicking people in the teeth that aren't going to learn anything from what I just talked about. And they're going to say this will never happen to me. And they're the ones that are going to be knocking on your door begging for food, you know, because they spent thousands of dollars on guns and ammo and they didn't buy any food. Y'all really need to learn from stuff like this. History always repeats. History will repeat and it will repeat. And, you know, the only, I'm going to repeat the one thing I said, and I said this to my brother from another mother in an email. History always repeats. The only persons that change the inevitable outcome are the ones that have truly learned from the past. It's the very origin of the prepper mindset. Again, I can't thank my BFAM enough for this subject matter to talk about. He truly has his dope zeroed in. He knows what he's talking about. He's got his mind in the right place. Much love to him and his family. Y'all watch your six and peace out.